Welcome everyone. Hello. Good to see all of you here. We are here today to talk about something that touches all of us, whether we're investors, founders, or just citizens. The future of the internet. Our guest, Frank McCourt, pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
Is a civic entrepreneur, builder, and impact investor who has committed more than $500 million into re-architecting the digital world through Product Liberty. At its core, Product Liberty is about rebuilding the internet so that people, not platforms, own and control their data, and so innovation can happen on open rails rather than behind walled gardens. For a room of entrepreneurs and tech investors, this is not just a philosophical issue. It's about where value will be created in the next decade. Will it be locked inside today's giants? Or can we unlock a new wave of open, investable infrastructure and application? Frank, let's start with the personal. You could have put your resources into a lot of things, many things. Why did you choose to dedicate so much time and so much money into fixing the internet?
Well, I come from a family of builders for 5 generations, and we build infrastructure. And infrastructure is really key to how systems operate. So, and we begin to notice, because we build these internet systems, that the internet, which was built to be a beautiful, decentralized, democratizing technology, was being co-opted by a few companies, and they were building massive value on the backs of our data. And so we commissioned some very brilliant technologists to tackle the problem and see, in fact, if an alternative to the way the current internet works, a new stack could be created, which would basically return our data to us. Think of it as data sovereignty. Think of it as owning and controlling your identity, your personal information, and so on and so forth. And so we've been very successful at that. The stack exists. There's 14 million people now using it, so we know it works. Of course, the challenge now is actually getting the policy-making apparatus to catch up, and quite frankly, creating a movement of people who will demand that this technology that is doing so much harm is altered.
So, in a couple of sentences, what are Product Liberty and Product Liberty Institute, and what problems are you trying to solve?
Well, I pretty much said it. So think of Project Liberty as having 2 parts. One is a for-profit, and the other is not-for-profit. Again, we're not going to have the impact at the scale that we want to have without businesses that are, the millions of builders building on this new stack. And so Project Liberty is a 3-legged stool. Let's think of it like that. It's one track is the technology track, because if we don't fix the tech and provide an alternative to today's internet, nobody's going anywhere. We can say it's horrible, it's doing a lot of harms and this and that, but we all are dependent on the internet, so we're not going to stop using it, right? We need the alternative. Secondly, we do need better policies. There's just no question about it, to level the playing field and allow innovation to occur, because the amount of power that's now been centralized in a few companies, and by the way, you can see in America where even our political apparatus has gravitated towards these big companies. This consolidation of power is extremely dangerous. Yeah. And then the third track is coming out of the not-for-profit, is creating actually a movement of people. We now have 165 organizations from around the world that are joining forces to actually to really move, not just educate, but really insist that we have a better internet that centers people. And again, I want to highlight, we're not anti-technology in the least. We're massively pro-technology. We're just not for technology that's exploiting us and manipulating us and destroying democracy and corrupting the information ecosystem and harming children. So let's fix this technology before we make it more powerful with AI.
I was reading a report that you published that 8 out of 10 people are either concerned or very concerned about how their personal data is being collected by this big platform. What went wrong with Web 2? And what's at stake if we don't change course?
Yeah, so it's a very interesting point because we started this project 6 years ago, and if we were having this conversation 6 years ago, people would say that's interesting, I guess, but I like my phone, I like the internet, everything's kind of cool, and what's the big deal? The shift over the last 6 years has been massive. People now are well aware of the harms of the technology. When I say harms, I'm talking about internet technology and the exploitation of our personal information. Okay, so you in Web 2, you'd call it our social graph information. In this AI world, you'd call it your context, right? The information you're sharing with the LLMs. So if big tech has their way, they're going to use their technology to garner more and more and more information about us. And there's only one model that they have to eventually make it work, which is the same model that they've used already, and it's doing so much harm. If you think about what's happened with the internet, there was a rush to grab our data, and I'm talking about personal data, information about us. That's the holy grail. And whether it's social, shopping, or search, it's the same thing. Grab information from each of us and then essentially sell ads, et cetera, et cetera. If you look back at that, when that began, it was like, okay, great, they know something about me, but I can can buy a shirt, it'll be delivered tomorrow, that's great. Mm-hmm. It's now totally different. There's so much inference on each one of us that we're essentially surveilled, hyper micro profiled, millions of data points on each of us, and now we're manipulated. So we don't even know we're being manipulated because it's such fantastic propaganda machinery.
Yep.
And so if we allow it to continue with generative AI and with the same script, which is get more and more precise information on people, and AI will produce the ad that will know exactly what you're going to respond to or I'm going to respond to. It's just, I think it's immoral. I think it should be massively illegal. It's a corrupt system. And again, it's not the technology that's the problem. It's how it's being used. And I was having a conversation earlier, and it's, again, think of it as a hammer. Right? A hammer is a tool. Mm-hmm. You can go take your hammer and go build a house, or you can take your hammer and go outside and kill someone. It's just a tool. We have technology right now that could be solving massive global problems at scale, and instead, it's creating massive problems and sucking up our time and energy and resources in trying to mitigate the harm.
Do you think it would be solved through technology or regulation or a combination? What's needed here? Because naturally, the big platforms, they have nothing to gain from actually moving towards another thing, right?
I think it's definitely both. I think you're not going to solve. Look, I've talked to the people at the European Commission who are responsible, right, for GDPR, DMA, DSA, and so on and so forth. They have acknowledged that the policy making alone will not solve the problem. You need to fix the tech so it's in harmony with your policy objectives. On the other hand, just having beautiful technology, that is better for people and so on and so forth, is not going to solve the problem, because we're competing against giants with a tremendous influence and power.
Yep.
And so this is something that is really, really a serious set of issues if you're concerned about democracy, if you're concerned about trust in society and being able to tell fact from fiction, if you're concerned about the harms to kids, and so on and so forth. What I'm thrilled about is that it's a totally fixable problem. And that's I guess the curse of building infrastructure. You actually understand how it works. And this is just technology that is working a certain way because we've adopted certain protocols. First one, connected devices. The second one, connected data. Why not another one that connects us and gives us it returns agency to us. The power shifts from platforms to people. We have our data back, and we permission its use. And it will be massively empowering for people, and very, very financially positive for people, because you look at there was a time, even 6-7 years ago, where big tech would tell you your data is not worth anything.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, look at the 21 trillion, 7 companies. Your data is worth a ton, okay? Imagine if there was a different way of thinking about the economics around the data going forward. We solve tremendous problems, because the data aggregated does reveal incredible patterns to be able to really make great decisions, policy and otherwise. But the data also is used commercially, and some of that benefit should be shared with the people who are creating the fuel for the engine, right? And it's just getting people to think differently and kind of a shifting paradigm. And I will say one last thing. What I've noticed in the last 6 to 9 months is that there's a big shift happening right now with the internet. We're moving from so-called Web 2 to the agentic web.
Yep.
When technology shifts is the moment in time to make design changes. It's hard to change 30 years of entrenched technology. It's not hard at all to set the rules for the agentic web. And now big tech will want us to just double down on what they do, but this is going to amplify the harms, and we just won't get the richness and the goodness out of the technology that we deserve.
Interesting. You mentioned AI a couple of times now. I started a PhD in AI at the Santa Fe Institute 20 plus years ago. It was on the negative hype cycle. Everyone told me not to do something in AI. It was even called machine learning and neural network. No one really believed in AI. Today AI is everywhere, and agentic AI is coming. It's about to become mainstream. Are you concerned?
I have 2 competing reactions to that. Obviously concerned. that should be pretty clear. But I'm hugely optimistic if we can fix this. You asked me a question earlier: is it policy or tech? And I said both. I think there's a third component of this, and that is people doing what you're all doing here, which is you're interested in more responsible technology, whether it be for the environment or for any other reason. We need to take charge. We need to change how things work. We can't just, in my opinion, sit and watch things move in a very bad direction. And probably my biggest qualification for this is I'm a father, and I have 8 children. I have 4 from my first marriage, who I raised pre-internet essentially, and 4 from my current marriage that I'm raising in the internet. And I can tell you, it's massively different job for a parent. Okay, we are now competing with the technology to raise our kids, to protect our kids, and so forth. And with AI, with social, we use it. With AI and chatbots, we develop a relationship
100%.
With the technology. Yep. We're sharing very intimate information. The large language models are all sycophantic. Okay, they just lead people in a path, and we're gonna be competing as parents. The nuclear family is going to be competing with the agentic. Yep. The person competing with the parent for the attention of the children and teaching the child, protecting the child. And remember, this is now in our homes. It's not like okay, we can go home. It's our castle. We know we're safe at home. This technology is in our homes. Everybody wants in the home. This happened in Web 2 when everybody said, okay, Alexa, Siri, Ring doorbells, Nest cameras, smart TVs, smart dishwashers. It was, how can I get in the home and get the information? Now we're seeing these companies double down on this. They are addicted to our information, our personal information, and they're exploiting it. We bid for U.S. TikTok.
I was going to that.
Yeah, we mounted a bid called the People's Bid when the U.S. Congress said, okay, it has to be sold or shut down. And what did U.S. Congress discover? ByteDance, China, okay, is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, was collecting information on 170 million Americans. That's not good. Worse yet, they were manipulating how 170 million Americans were thinking, because the people on TikTok, the vast majority of them are getting their news from TikTok, and less than 1% of that news is coming from respected journalists.
When I was reading up your background and what you're doing, this one actually very much caught my attention. Was this the people's bid for TikTok? Was it a serious attempt to actually purchase, to buy TikTok, or what was the motivation behind that?
It was a taking advantage of for what I'm talking about and what I'm hoping will happen, and what I'm advocating for. It's going to take a mindset shift. Okay, so you need kind of a cultural shift where people really care about the issue and start to inquire more, talk to other people, and really lean into it. The TikTok moment was a perfect moment for us to elevate the mission, okay? Project Liberty started in December of 2019, way before the TikTok legislation. But it was a perfect moment to say, we can raise the money, we can buy it. Our technology stack that I referred to earlier doesn't require the Chinese technology. The legislation requires a disentanglement from the Chinese technology. Why not buy it, move 170 million people over to this new stack, and boom, you have an alternative. So people can choose. Do I want an internet where I'm surveilled and my data is stolen? Or do I want an internet where I have data sovereignty and I get value for I own my identity, I own my data, I permission its use, and I can get value. So we raised $20 billion. We put forward the only certifiable, qualified bid for U.S. TikTok. The only one that the government signed off on.
I think that story is unfolding as we speak.
And
were you close?
Yeah.
Can I ask?
No, because you see now it looks like it's being sold for less than $20 billion to friends and family. And this is just not right, because there is a very real national security issue associated with it. And by the way, it's not limited to TikTok. I think, and I think the bridge is getting shorter and shorter. Yes, U.S. Congress paid attention to TikTok because of the China factor, but they're realizing now it's all of this technology is predatory. All of this technology is surveillance-based. And, I was listening to one of the earlier speakers talking about biological warfare and mentioned that the first human genome was sequenced for like a cost of $3 billion, and now it's $300, and everybody born in the free world is going to have their genome sequenced and be the beneficiary of personalized medicine. So I got a phone call from the gentleman that runs Broad Institute in Cambridge, Mass., one of the foremost institutes with Harvard and MIT, focusing on biotech and molecular biology. And he said, I want to join your project. I said, Todd, why do you want to join this project? Because we're focusing on the tech stack. He said, he explained to me, 3 billion to 300, pretty good, right? I said, that sounds awesome. He said, okay, I have 3 questions. When your genome is sequenced, who owns that data? Where is it stored? And who gets to use it for what purpose? He said, we have no policies on that, but we're like marching ahead with the science. That's the easy part. What is you should own your data. You should permission its use, because it's your biological being, right? It's your genome. We need to get people to start thinking about, and I urge you all, every time you hear the word data, think personhood. It's everything about you. Everything. Every choice you make, every place you go, every thought you have, every feeling you have, it is everything about you. Think of it as digital DNA, and you should own you. It's just, it's an absurdity to me that these companies own us in a way that is, and then we're kind of like zombies being dragged into a future we don't want.
Before we're running out of time, I could spend an hour with you. I have 20 more questions for you, but we're running out of time. This is a room full of entrepreneurs and tech investors. Where are the investable opportunities in this new web? What should people be investing in, and what should people be working on? How can we rally behind this?
Okay, so there's I mentioned the technologists that are working as part of the project. You'll be hearing very soon about protocols that they're putting forward that will be open source, that everybody can use. Yep. And we're hoping and believing that millions of developers will step forward and create and make the vision I've just laid out a reality. Mm-hmm. And there will be massive financial opportunities. At the same time, people will be actually changing how the internet works. You know, people have said, oh, geez, this is too big and it seems very daunting. This is too important. This is existential for life as we've known it. And if we want to solve climate, we want to solve other issues, we need to fix the technology that underpins that. Because in this day and age, we can have a president of the United States go up and say that climate change is the biggest con job ever. And then that travels around the information ecosystem, and people that want to believe that climate is a con job believe it, and they say the president said it. Okay? We need to fix this, this toxic environment where it is the algorithms are designed to polarize. Yep. To polarize us. The algorithms could care less about climate. They could care less about truth and trust. They could care less about kids. They're doing what algorithms do, which is keep us all triggered, half on this side, half on that side, and online. And it's very insidious. And if you think about these chatbots and the information we're all sharing with these large language models, this is a more powerful version of actually capturing our data and capturing us. And we can't let the same thing happen in the agentic web that happened in Web 2 around capture, privacy, and manipulation.
We need to wrap up. So I know you're arranging a side event breakfast tomorrow where you can actually learn more about Product Liberty, and also an event, I think, at 2 p.m. tomorrow in Red Room where we talk more about this.
Great. Thank you, Johan.
Please join
me. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Frank.
Yeah, thank you.